Hello and welcome back. I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana, and you are watching Marksman TV. Welcome back to another weekly used gun review. Remember, in these videos, we take about 8 used firearms that have come into the store and give you guys about a 2 to 4 minute review of each one to give you guys an idea of some different stuff that is out there on the market. Remember, the point of this video is strictly to be entertaining and educational. It is not intended to sell you anything, just to keep in accordance with YouTube's policies. Anyway, guys, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into it now. Alright, remember the format of this video. We start with most common and move through least common as the video progresses. Starting off with our first spot, we have a Star Model BM, 9mm, single action only. Does have a magazine disconnect and feeds from a single stack magazine. Now, the Star pistols were manufactured in Spain by Star between 1972 and 1992, Sig Military and Police Service. Now, as these would be retired and turned in from their military use, they would be imported into the United States by 4 major importers. We have Garcia Sporting Arms, Inner Arms, PW Arms, and most recently Century Arms, which this is a Century Arms import. If you guys remember, about 2 years ago, the Century Arm import Star BMs were flooding the market. We actually had them in here in our store. We were selling them for about $250, and gosh, I probably got in about 70 of them. They were very good sellers because for the very low cost, what you essentially have here is a 9mm scaled down 1911. Now, I know it's not exactly a 1911. It does not have things like a grip safety, and the hammer block safety works a little bit different than it does in a 1911. But for all intents and purposes, it's a 1911 package, if you will. So if you are used to a 1911, you would feel right at home on this. Now, this is a compact variation of the Star Model B, which is, again, full-size and actually looks very close to a full-size government 1911. And again, it is chambered in 9mm. Now, the previous owner of this did put on these wood grips. Originally, out of the box, it would have come in this factory box with this manual, these sort of hard plastic grips, and then one magazine. Again, the previous owner has a spare magazine here as well. Now, because these have been coming in for a long time, and there are a ton of them on the market, even though you cannot really get them directly from importers today, they are not very expensive. You should be able to find one of these on the market between $200 to $250, in the basic, with the basic grips and one magazine, maybe a little bit higher with a spare mag and that sort of thing. Overall condition on these that I've seen, again, I've had several of them go through my hands, have generally been, I would say, good for their age. You're going to see things like some finish wear here and there, but here's got a little bit of finish wear, but overall the functionality of these is great, and they are a lot of fun to shoot. So if you are looking for something as just a range novelty, something a little bit different, or something that you actually want to keep as a carry, these are rugged military firearms, and they are, a scaled down 1911 9mm. So anyway, really cool pistols. If you do get a chance to see one or handle one at a gun show or your local gun shop, I definitely recommend that you do. So that'll be our number 1 spot, the Star BM. All right, up next I have a popular pistol from Sig. This is the Sig P229 M11A1. This is a 9mm double single action with a decocker, feeding from a 15-round detachable box magazine. Now, the story of the P229 really starts with the P226. You guys remember I had a 226 on here a couple weeks ago. That was developed in the early 80s, came out in 1984 in time for the American M9 handgun trials. Now, the trials were won by Beretta with the M9 handgun. Now, the P226 did meet all of the military requirements. They went with the M9 because really the contract costs were going to be a lot lower. Now, the P226 did get adopted by the US military in limited fashion with things like the Mark 25. Now, around that time, Sig did come out with a compact variation of the P226 called the P228, and it was only offered in 9mm. It also had a carbon steel slide. Now, in 1990, we had the advent, or at least the popularizing of a new cartridge, the 40 Smith & Wesson. I guess it's still really popular today with a lot of circles as well. Now, the P228, was not capable of really handling the higher pressures of the 40 Smith & Wesson, so Sig wanted to come out with a handgun that was a little bit more durable, a little bit more robust for that cartridge. At the time, also, Sig was making a name for itself here in the United States with the opening of American-based manufacturing plants as well. So they went to the drawing board and came out with a new pistol, which was just like the 228, but had a stainless steel slide, as well as a couple other variational changes, and they dubbed it the P229, which we have here. If you set the 229 and the 228 next to each other, you really can't tell much of a difference between the two. In fact, this one actually has P228 grips on it, and that comes in with the M11A1, which I'll talk about in a second. The P228 also did receive some military contracts and was adopted by the US military as the M11, which is where the M11 and P229 M11A1 comes from. On the A1 variation, they did things like put the SRT in it, which is the short reset trigger, which you're going to get on a lot of, right there, it's a super fast reset, which you're going to get on a lot of the more premium versions of the Sig 226, 229 lines, like the Legion series, the Elite series, things like that. And actually, it's a really nice single action trigger pull for a double single action pistol if you get that SRT in one of those products. One other thing is they would add the retro P228 grips to it, put things like the Sig Light night sights on it, and they put a military UID code on it as well. These have been very popular pistols. Let's get into pricing. Right now, used on the market, you're going to find something like this in really good condition like this for maybe about $800 to $850, which is about just shy of about where they sold for new. Recently new, they would have been about maybe $800-900. Right now, I don't even know what the pricing is new because I haven't seen one available for sale new. I do imagine that it's likely elevated like everything else, probably up around the $1,000+ mark, $1,000 to $1,200. If we're talking something like this, again, is very, very lightly used. I'm not even sure it looks like it probably has been fired, maybe not. There's not even the typical SIG finish wear on the barrel that you get, so very low round count. So something like this for the price point, with the SRT, the night sights, just the SIG feel and name on the full-size double action, single action trigger. Just a really, really cool product. So anyway, if you do get a chance to take a look at a 226, a 228, a 229, they are really, really cool pistols. So anyway, there is that for you in the number 2 spot, the Sig P229 M11A1. All right, up next, I have a cool little pistol from Springfield. This is the Springfield 1911 EMP. EMP stands for Enhanced Micro Pistol. This one here is a 9mm. They also made them in 40 as well. Now, this would come out onto the market in 2006 and is still being manufactured today. This is the lightweight version, which is a little bit lighter and also a little bit less expensive than the standard variation. Also bitone. They make them on a full black as well. The EMP is, if we basically take the standard lines of a full-size 1911 and scale it down for the most part, there's something like 13 or 14 parts in here that have been scaled down from its traditional 1911 size. That allows you to get down to a smaller, lighter, concealable version of the 1911. So if you are a fan of the 1911 pattern and you don't want to go to something like an officer size 45, which is still full size other than a shorter frame and shorter barrel, you want something just a hair smaller, you can go to something like this, the EMP. If you want to go even smaller, then you're looking at things like the Mustang, the 229, I'm not the 229, the 938 is what I'm trying to say, or the Springfield 911. So this is a nice happy medium. Now, this would be similar to things like the Colt Defender, for example, which follows a sort of a similar idea and concept. Now, in terms of pricing on this, brand new, you're looking at about $1,100 to $1,250. MSRP is right around the $1,200 mark. Used in really good condition, you'd be looking at between about $800 and $900 right now. Of course, original box. This one is also, I'm pretty sure, unfired. A lot of these that you're going to see are actually from one collection that we just got in. 3 magazines, original box. You know, just a really cool package, a really good concealed carry option, very stylish. Also, the trigger pull, I should show you guys, is very, very light. Show you the reset there. Right there. I mean, I just let off pressure and there's the reset into a nice clean break. So just a great pistol, great action, wood grips, skeletonized hammer. It does have night sights as well on it, skeletonized trigger with over travel adjustment. So just a cool package. So there's that Springfield EMP. Okay, next up, I have a pretty unique, somewhat unique pistol. If I can get it out of here. This is obviously from Beretta. And this is a PX4 Storm compact carry. And it's got 3 magazines The PX4 Storm did come out in about 2004, and it is currently being manufactured today. The standard traditional Storm models, they make in a full size, a compact, and a subcompact in 9, 40, and 45. And price point wise are typically around where you find a Glock, an XD, and M&P. So they hover around the $5 to $550 price point under normal circumstances. Some of the interesting features of the firearm, first of all, the overall look and aesthetic of the firearm, a lot of people have equated to like an alien blaster sort of thing, so it does break up the traditional lines of what you would expect on a firearm. One other thing it did is it took the rotating locking barrel design features from the 8000 series from Beretta, or the Cougar line as many people know it as, on the full size and the compact. On the subcompact it uses a traditional tilting locking barrel. The safety mechanics though are indicative of that of the M9 or 92 series. Now this particular one is a G. The G on all of their line pistols just means decocker only, with no function on the safety. A traditional model does have the decocker, but the decocker doubles as a safety. You can get that in the M9A3, the M9 version, a lot of their other pistols as well. Now this is the compact carry, which is a sort of I'm going to say more expensive or enhanced variation of the PX4 Storm line. Some of the things they did on this is they put this sort of tungsten gray coating on it, a rubberized more stippling on the grip straps, comes with 3 magazines. You have night sights on it with the high vis, daytime front sight. You have an enhanced trigger pull weight. And this model here does MSRP in about the $900 price point. New right now in the market, I'd expect it to be a little bit higher. Now used, they are going between about $850 to $1,000. $850 is more likely about where I would expect to see it go. Interesting pistols. I personally have never had that much interest in the PX4 Storm line. Again, they just, I don't know, there's something about just the fit, the feel, the aesthetic that just is something that I don't really personally have an interest in. But I do know a lot of people do like them. I have carried them in my store. Although they don't sell as well as XDs or M&Ps or Glocks, they do still have a following. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with them. They are definitely known for being reliable, and because of that rotating locking barrel, it keeps your recoil inertia very linear instead of that tilting motion of the barrel, which gives you really nice recoil control and very low muzzle flip, which is a really cool design feature of the pistol as well. Anyway, really cool, not only a Storm, but the compact carry enhanced variation of the Storm. Not something I've had in before, so there you go. Okay, up next I have a very classic pistol. This is a Smith & Wesson manufactured, under license from Walther, PPK. Technically it's a PPK-S. Now, the story of the PPK would begin in the 1930s in Germany, pre-war, with the release of the pistols like the PP, the Pistol Polizei, and the PPK, the Pistol Polizei Kurz, the short version of the PP, most prominently chambered in .32 ACP. It would be produced and issued as, you know, a German military sidearm, usually typically found on officers during the Second World War, which is one of the first places it kind of gained a lot of notoriety. Those would have been blued. You would have had the marble-esque sort of thin Bakelite plastic grip scales on it with the pinky extension. They did make a .22 caliber version around the same time, as well as one in .380. Now, after the war, France with the Menurin factory would produce the PPs, and then they would also be imported from Walther into the United States. Now, in 1968, we have the GCA, the Gun Control Act, which implemented a series of points and a point system for what firearms could be imported into the country. Because of the size, weight, and the caliber, the standard configuration PPK did not meet those requirements, so they did come out with a version called the PPK-S, which is what this is, which used a PPK slide and a PP, which is a larger frame. Now, the PPK-S does have a +1 on the capacity because of that. Now, when it was being imported into the country, they would be imported by Inter Arms, and then there would be a contract to manufacture them here stateside between Ranger and Inter Arms, and then after that, Smith & Wesson and Walther. So you do have the Walther manufactured like wartime guns, and then you have the Walther manufactured imported by Inter Arms, and then you have the Ranger manufacturer distributed by Inter Arms, and then you have the Smith & Wesson manufacturer distributed by Smith & Wesson. The latter two being a licensed copy of the PPK. Now that's what this is. This is a Smith & Wesson variation. Now what makes this popular, it is a fixed barrel straight blowback design, so for its size and weight it is a very accurate firearm. Things like the Beretta Thunder would be a very close derivative sort of copy of this, and things like the Makarov series of pistols would take a lot of notes out of the page from the PPK. This was also, of course, popularized by the James Bond franchise, which is how most people have learned about this pistol through pop culture. They do make it in the stainless variation you see here, as well as a blued, full blued variation. Now, Walther did discontinue, and its subcontractors, if you want to call them that, did discontinue production of this for several years. Walther does now manufacture a new production model of it, which will retail brand new at about $850 to $900. Now, on the used market, something like this, the Smith & Wesson made, so like the Inter Arms Ranger and the Smith & Wesson under license contract versions of the PPK do bring in less than the actual Walther made guns. Something like this would retail right now at about the $650 mark. You know, 2 magazines. You know, these are non-factory grips. You know, so yeah, about $650 is about right. They are very cool, classic pistols. They do feel good. They're ergonomic for what they are and their weight. There are other more attractive options in terms of like pocket or concealed carry. But if you want something with nice style and aesthetics, PPK is just a good one to add to the collection. So there it is, Walther PPK S. Okay, up next I have a pretty interesting one. This is an American Derringer M1 or Model 1 Derringer, obviously, chambered in 4570. If you can see the size of that thing in a 4570, this thing will definitely have a lot of recoil. Even though most traditional Derringers are an over-under 2-shot configuration, this is a single shot, the top basically working as an overlug. It's filled, there's really nothing there. To open, you push the spring-loaded button and then sling over the lever. Open it up, hinges from the top point. Load your 1 round of ammunition, close and lock. Back into a single action hammer back and fire. Safety is here. You manually hold it in while releasing the hammer, and it catches it on sort of a safety notch. To take it off safety, it's automatic. You bring it back to single action and the safety just pulls itself off safe and you can fire. Of course, this is definitely going to be a handful. American Derringer has been around since 1980, and they do make, this is their most prolific design, the M1 Derringer, which they make in about 60 different calibers, anything from 22 to 4570. The lower calibers, you know, the 38 special type things should be about $300-ish on the used market. This I've seen between $500 and $650, particularly is kind of the limited price points I've seen. Even though a little bit higher, the market on something like this is going to be very narrow because there's not a lot of people out there looking for 4570 pocket pistols. Again, so just kind of a niche market, range novelty, if you will. The Model 1 has been used in a lot of pop culture, movies, things like that, as a kind of a standard Derringer-looking pistol for cinema effects or whatever, and it is closely designed off of the Remington 95, which I have had on one of these videos a few months ago, so you can go take a look at that. But anyway, very unique, very different, never had one of these in here before. I have had Model 1s, but not in 4570, so just pretty cool. All right, up next is a beautiful firearm. If you know Wilson Combat, you know you're about to see quality. This is, I've got, excuse me while I get through the layers of sort of packing material. This is a Wesson Combat EDC X9 1911. This one has the 5-inch barrel, single action only, 9mm double step mags, holding 18 rounds. Now they do make a compact version of this as well. Now, Wesson Combat was founded by Bill Wilson in 1977, and really what Wesson Combat has always been known for is customizing different firearm platform designs. Now, in the 70s, he would start by customizing mainly 1911s, that's what he was known for, and things like Smith & Wesson Model 10s. You could send in your firearm, he would go through it, completely tune it, upgrade it in any way that he could, and you would get back a really nice, well done, basically range or target firearm that was incredibly accurate, very durable. Now, he always sourced his parts from other parts manufacturers. In about the 1980s, he started up fabrication on his own parts in-house. And then in the 1990s, he started fabrication on his own firearms in-house. You could still get things upgraded like the Beretta 92 series upgrades and stuff like that, but what a lot of people flock to are the full in-house built 1911 frame style pistols like you see here. As mentioned, this is the 5-inch barrel. They make the shorter barrel as well, which I think is the 3.5 to 4 inches. It is an aluminum alloy frame, steel slide. This one does have the rail option. You have night sights, skeletonized hammer. The trigger pull weight on these is just phenomenal. Very lightweight. I'll show you the reset here. And very light pull. Just the contours of the grip are very thin. You have no screws in the grip panels. It really just feels like it just fits your hand like a glove. Anybody who picks one up, whatever hand size they are, tend to say the exact same thing. These are just very ergonomic, very well made pistols. Very well respected as well. Now when we get into the price point on these, the recommended retail price and pretty much what you're going to find them for new is about the $2,800 range, so they are not cheap. Used, they do maintain a lot of their values. You're going to be between about $2,200 and $2,600 depending on condition and what they come with. So anyway, really hard to beat a Wilson Combat. Again, just a beautiful, beautiful pistol. And again, this one I am not sure. I do not believe it's even been fired. So really, really cool handgun. Glad to get it in. Okay, last but definitely not least, I have a Polytechnologies Polytech AKS AKM pattern rifle. Now the story with this would begin in the early 1980s when the American consumer market was interested in getting in an AK pattern Russian style AK rifle that they could purchase, buy, and own and take to the range and shoot. The first thing to come out onto the market was brought in by FN from the Mahdi manufacturing plant in Egypt, and it was actually a very close representation of the Russian AKM. Now, people did buy them, people did own them, but the main problem with them was the price. They did retail new at about $1,000 to $1,200, which in today's dollars is about $2,000 to $3,000, so very pricey. Other competitors would start looking at the market, realizing there was demand here, and they wanted to bring in cheaper alternatives, so you have the introduction of the Chinese AKs from Norinco and Polytech. Now, Norinco and Polytech are actually importers, or exporters, I should say. They are not actually arms manufacturers in and of themselves, so they would take up production semi-automatic versions of the Chinese Type 56, which is what were used predominantly in places like Vietnam in the Vietnam War. Basically put semi-automatic components in them, not drill a sear hole, and ship them off to the United States. Now, at the time that these would come into the country, they would retail in about the $200 to $300 price point, which, by comparison, was way less expensive. And if we're looking at inflation, we're talking about what the prices of like a Walther 10 would sell for. So way more palatable to people in the consumer market, and these things took off, and they were very, very popular. Now, things were going great for the Norinco and the Polytech AKs until 1989. Some jackass went and shot at a school. That's the Stockton schoolyard shooting. I'm not going to name who that jackass is. And because of that, of course, we got a lot of political backlash. So, of course, there was a huge overreaction, and these AKs were specifically banned under a 1989 import ban because they did not have a specific sporting purpose. So these were not really brought into the country for a very long period of time, less than 10 years, which makes them very rare and very desirable on the current market. Now, features on this one particularly, you do have a spike bayonet, indicative of the early Type 56 rifles, the hooded front post, which is a very Chinese feature, the very iconic blonde wood stock set with a checkered pistol grip, a very rich bluing on the receiver, 30-round magazine. This is not a Chinese mag. Just a very iconic, very beautiful looking AK, and they are known for being very functional as well. Polytech also came out with a milled receiver version called the Legend. I actually personally own one. Mine's an underfolder. This one here is a stamped receiver, and all of the Norinco AKs were, at least to my understanding, or at least most of them were stamped. Price point on these. If we're talking about this in this condition, which I would say overall is good to very good, there's some nicks and dings in the wood, some scratches, but there's no cracks or anything like that. Most of the bluings here, good shape. It is all matching. I did take it apart. You're looking at about the $2,200 to $2,500 price point. If you had its original box in really good condition, anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000. So they go for a lot of money. The Legends, go, yeah, and about that price point as well, 3,000 to 4,000, and they're boxed in really good condition. Of course, a lot of that does account for what's going on politically right now. A year ago, you know, they were about 500 bucks less, so they have escalated a little bit. But for people who want both a collector's item and something that's very functional and very nice looking firearm, the Polytech and the Derringer AKs are just, you know, something to have, something people will really like. So anyway, we'll leave it off with that. Polytech AKS underfolder. Or I'm sorry, Spiker underfolder. Of course, they did have the underfolding stocks as well, but this is the fixed stock, and there you go with that one. Well, that is all the time I have for you today on these. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out this video. If you enjoyed, please let me know by hitting that like button. Also, remember to hit the subscribe button and bell notification button so you are aware when we post these videos, and we do post them every week. Anyway, guys, with that, I will leave you there. I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. You are watching Marksman TV, and I will see you next time.